dare I say, was cautiously very optimistic about the Kamala Harris campaign's chances when the swap out happened, and then and kept repeating the position that there's a lot of momentum here, there's a lot of motion here. They're responding to public pressure. Obviously, it was a unique opportunity, once in a blue moon, where donor pressure and public pressure. And today, I wanted to have him on to hear his insight as to what the election currently looks like from a person that has visited many of these important states, including but not limited to Arizona, right? I believe you were in Arizona for quite a while. David, I also have a friend here with me.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, David, I have a friend here with me. His name is Austin. He's AustinShow. He's my podcast co-host. We don't really do a lot of politics on the podcast. However, he is a massive lib, like a ginormous liberal.
Yes.
Last night he was, you know Noah, right? Noah Colwyn, Dave.
I know him from the pod.
Noah Colwyn.
I love the pod. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Twitter, I guess. I know everybody on Twitter.
Yeah. So he was staying with me last night, and Austin walked up to me in private and was like, I'm just giving you a little background on him because he's going to be sitting through this interview. If he asks you like annoying questions, like I need you to understand where it's coming from, like what his mindset is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So last night, Austin pulls me aside quietly within of Noah and goes, so who is this guy? And I say, oh, his name is Noah Colwyn. He has a podcast. He's a researcher. He's like really good. He has a podcast called Blowback. He does political commentary. So he's like, oh, okay. So he's a lefty. I'm like, yeah. So can I ask him about the polls? And he harassed him about Kamala Harris's chances for like an hour.
Some would call it harassment. Others would call it a spirited discussion. Yeah. I think it was a really good discussion. And although Hasan framed me as an MSNBC watching liberal, I think you'll be very pleased with my acumen. And I'm not as crazy or libbed up as he likes to say. I used to be, but I've watched a lot of Hasan over the last several years, so I'm a lot better.
Okay, stop. You don't have to give him your credit.
Like libbed up how? Libbed up like you care about just that you watch MSNBC, or what's the lib factor here?
No, I libbed up in the sense that I used to watch a lot of MSNBC, and a lot of my political takes were that of a viewer of MSNBC or CNN. When I watch MSNBC now, I look at it with a whole different perspective because
I see.
Take things with a little grain of salt, knowing where it's coming from. But yeah. I'm more. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I was on his.
I just wonder if you were like Mueller's about to get Trump, that kind of thing.
No.
Like Trump's going down today. That's
no. There's levels to it. He's not that.
No. Like I don't know. My mom is. I find her very entertaining for that reason. So. I mean, I want him to be in jail, of course. I mean, who doesn't want him to be in jail? I think it's like a. I
do want him to be in jail only if he's still allowed to tweet. Actually, like just cameras on 24/7, broadcast it on his own news network where he can just like have his own show, have his own little show, maybe even like produce Broadway musicals and stuff. Because I feel like his cultural output would be fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, I've done that before. I do that all the time. I have carbonated drinks all day, and I've never learned when they. Apparently, if you
understand why
carry them in a bag all day and then open them, they will do that. Which
David,
I need to learn every week.
I don't understand why he would put a carbonated drink in the fridge, or a shaken up carbonated drink in the fridge.
Didn't.
Like
you
that.
Dropped it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I just didn't think the drop was enough to warrant that reaction to the can. So
I swear he does not have severe limitations in his processing capabilities.
Yeah. Anyway,
he's gonna ask thoughtful questions.
I will.
But Dave, let's get started on. Let me start the conversation by saying that first and foremost, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you. It's been a while.
Yeah. I think 2 years probably.
Yeah, last time I think you were on, I had you on with like Moon. I think I still put you next to like some Twitch streamer as well, just to.
Yeah.
It could have been Moo, which is crazy. He's now known as Goon, but we won't get into that. So, I dare I say was cautiously very optimistic about the Kamala Harris campaign's chances when the swap out happened, and then and kept repeating the position that there's a lot of momentum here. There's a lot of motion here. They're responding to public pressure. Obviously, it was a unique opportunity once in a blue moon where donor pressure and public pressure from the voters aligned perfectly. And then establishment Democrats behaved like a competent Democratic Party, a competent party in general, which is not something that I'm used to from them, at least in the way that I judge their performance. And then Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz as her running mate. And I thought, wow, they're locked into a progressive message. They have to address a lot of these things that they're going to attack her as radical. They're going to have to like, you know, sit there and tell Americans, no, it's not radical to like feed children. Right. Speaking on Tim Walz's, you know, governor track record and the legislation at the state level that he signed into law with a one-person state Senate majority, right? Not dissimilar to what Congress might even look like, depending on the outcome of this election. We'll see. So I thought that was very positive, but I was always worried, and I always warned everyone that was listening that if Kamala Harris breaks away from this momentum and plays to the center, attacks to the center, and then justifies that by claiming that you know, we have to get these suburban college-educated white voters into the party and swap them away from, pull them away from their Republican ticket, pull them away from voting Republican in the same way that Joe Biden successfully pulled off in 2020. Then that, you know, I thought the messaging on that front would ruin the chances of building a 2008 Obama coalition. I want to ask you if I was, because now that months have gone by and they did do exactly that, especially with the DNC statements about like having a lethal military and all this stuff, I feel like that momentum is gone, and now it seems like Trump is gaining in the polls. And that's a little bit worrisome for my liberal friend here. I wanted you to speak to that. Like from where you're standing, you're out there, you're out and about. Do you feel as though Kamala Harris's chances are as doomy and gloomy as the way that like media is now presenting it, myself included, or is she just doing gangbusters?
Oh, it's neither of those, which is kind of a boring answer, but she's in one way to look at this, she's in the worst position head to head with Trump than Hillary was or Biden was in the polling. And because people watch polling underrate Trump twice, I think fairly people see a poll that says, hey, Kamala's up 2 in Michigan, say, oh, she's screwed. That's fair. What did her campaign do? It did something kind of amazing that I've never seen before. You were talking about part of it, but she was not popular 4 months ago. 4 months ago, she was a joke. I remember after the Biden-Trump debate, asking Republicans immediately, what are they going to do? I remember asking them, who's going to be the Democratic nominee? And one common answer was, well, it can't be Harris because she's so unpopular. And they made her pretty popular. If you look at the polling now, she's got, or people who criticize her, but she's at 90-something% of Democrats, does pretty well with independents. She's getting some Republicans. Her favorables are in some swing states, like most of the Midwestern swing states. I saw one, North Carolina, they're 50-50, which is crazy. They were 30% in the same places before. But Trump has had these stubborn issue leads where people think on 3 things, basically. They think on immigration, on the economy, and this is the one that's probably maybe the most fun or dangerous to talk about, on Israel and foreign policy. They trust Trump more than her, and nothing has changed that. So the Trump campaign's run a bunch of ads, and super PACs have run a bunch of ads. Elon Musk came in with some of this. You saw reporting once you had to reveal who was behind these PACs, $200 million in ads that helped this Trump message. And they've been consistent. They're saying, we're going to change the subject from things that Harris might be pretty good on, or at least voters think she's good on. And we're going to say migrants, chaos, footage of every ad. If you're, Alex from the Clockwork Orange and your eyes are pulled back looking at the imagery, it's the plane taking off in Kabul with people falling off. It's migrants running through a fence. It's, I guess, a family looking at their bills going like this. Or maybe at a grocery store doing the same thing. Maybe you're holding a grocery, so you're going like this. But you know what I mean? Just the ads are all on those themes. And that's done some damage. So there are voters like in 16, a little bit in 2020, that say, oh, I like Kamala Harris, but I'm worried that she can't get in there and turn things around on the border and on the economy and get peace in Israel. And Trump can, because I feel like these weren't problems when he was president. That's my very simple view of the election. Yeah, again, based on going places and talking to voters and finding them. There are not a bunch of people who said, all of a sudden, I love Donald Trump and he's hilarious and I forgive him for everything I thought was annoying. They're more saying, oh, I still don't like this, but remember how I didn't have to see Gaza on my TV every day? Remember how I was able to buy milk for less? I want that back. Yeah. Trump will bring that back, I assume. That's kind of the problem they've run into.
Can I cut in here for a second and say something that I realized is very ironic? That was quite literally the reason why Joe Biden won in 2020. Because they were like, I don't want to see this guy on TV. It's annoying me. He's constantly yapping.
A lot of it.
He's like, it's reductive, but a lot of American voting is kind of reductive. It's kind of stupid. It's kind of silly. Like, people vote on silly reasons. And I think that was ironically the reason. They were like, this sucks. The person running the show, I hate. I need him out of here so I don't have to think about it ever again. And I fear that Kamala had a wonderful opportunity to cut against that, while simultaneously she has I don't know for what reason, but I guess maybe it's been successful somewhat, run directly towards Joe Biden, the person that she replaced, because he was unelectable.
Yeah, and she has not. That would be hard to do, right? One advantage Trump has had is that both of them have been in power. He was in power for 4 years. She's vice president. Both of them are saying, well, I'm going to do some more stuff if I'm reelected. And the Republicans have been very consistent in saying, well, anything Harris is saying now, she should have just done this already. She can't break with Biden. They should have done it already. Trump is running on stuff he didn't do the first time. He's come up with a bunch of new tax cuts that he never even talked about the first 4 years, talked about new policies he's never talked about before. And they've done a better job. I think they've got a media that helps them do a better job of selling that to people, because there's the theme of everything. I do think campaigns take years to win. The theme of everything with Trump is, things were pretty good when he was there, and if it wasn't good, it's because he was undermined by crappy advisors, and next time it's going to be Trump with no crappy advisors. And if you're a Democrat, this is a campaign with Liz Cheney, etc., you say, well, yeah, well, these are the advisors who held him in check. Look at this former Trump staffer who now says he's a Trump voter. Or if you're on the fence, you say, sometimes that's convincing. Sometimes you say, well, maybe if he had less establishment guys, he's going to do more things I like. And this is the whole RFK additive theory of the Trump campaign. Is as alienating as RFK Jr. is to a lot of people, it's, hey, don't worry about Tom Price or whoever taking over the health portfolio. It's going to be me. It's going to be Kennedy. I trust this guy who I literally ran against for 4 years because of how he handled COVID. I've changed my mind. Now he'll listen to me. I'm not even saying, oh, Democrats should be better at that. It's really hard to do because they don't have the same permission structure, or you could be mean and say like something. They just don't have the same. You had a little bit of this for Barack Obama. You don't have it for Biden and Harris. People saying, you know what? I got some stuff wrong, but next time they're going to hire everyone I want and get it right. You do have that for Trump. It's really potent.
Yeah. Trump is singularly charismatic, but also simultaneously very polarizing. Mm-hmm. The things that some people respond to as like cool and charismatic and funny, others understandably find. But I guess the way I see it right now is, and I want to hear your perspective on this, like, right now, to me, it seems like Trump's method is he's tapped out, right? He's just completely tapped out. He was president for 4 years. People have made up their minds on him, and nothing really changed in the polls for him until people saw more of Kamala Harris on TV and started to make up their minds, while Trump was doing this like onslaught of the charm offensive on all the podcasts that he could go on. And I feel like the method for him is like, will he be able to activate low and mid propensity voters and drive turnout on election day to go out and vote for him by large enough numbers in swing states, or if he doesn't do that, will the Kamala method of like trying to keep the Joe Biden coalition as tightly wound as possible, will that actually be successful for her? Would you say that that's an accurate understanding of the situation?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. I saw some people today going back to this Chuck Schumer infamously, because the whole story of the Hillary Clinton campaign was, gosh, you guys are really going to try this? She's really unpopular. And Chuck Schumer famously said, oh, well, for every working class voter she loses in central Pennsylvania, she'll gain 2 in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But then every Democrat in Pennsylvania since then did make that happen. You know, they've done really well in the last few elections.
No, that has been
not the 2-to-1 thing, but
no, that's been my biggest L for sure.
Yeah,
like they proved that like if they pushed hard enough on that front and basically like restructured themselves on the way that they communicate, like they restructured themselves as like, we are going to be the guys that give you all the good stuff that you want, but we're going to do it in a way that is not as volatile, like that. The suburbs respond positively to that, like seemingly. Now, will Kamala Harris be able to do that is a question.
Yeah. And so the thing is, she kind of has been with these voters, the college educated voters who have been moving to the left. I should say moving to the left is a fine way to put it. I should say moving away from Republicans, because they didn't all become leftists. But she has been doing that. In all the polling, you'll see, look at any poll of the Midwest where she's up by a little bit. She's up because she's doing a bit worse than Biden did with working class voters of all races, and she's doing better with college educated voters. It feels weird that those are the opposite, but you know what I mean? Like the different coalition. She has improved in like the suburbs of Milwaukee, and as she's done a little bit worse in, frankly, parts of downtown Milwaukee. That's true. It's very close, and there's no Democrat. Some Democratic incumbents have done better than this, but it is just the Biden coalition is losing some people who don't look they're ever going to vote for us again, at least with Trump as the option. Who do we replace them with? And they've been replacing them with frustrated Republicans. And so she has moved to the center, and they just so she's still, if you listen to her entire speeches, she still has some progressive ideas. She's talked about home care being covered through Medicare. I listen a lot to Bernie Sanders, I talked to him when last time I talked about this. Talked to him over the summer, but he was very clear. I think that they would win if they did more progressive policies and said, here's what I will deliver. And she's been doing a little bit of that. He's a little bit happier, but they're generally not. They don't want to run as we're going to recover with a bold New Deal plan the way that Joe Biden did. They don't think you can do that. They don't think you can add the ex-Republicans you need, because they think you're renting those people for one election and then they're going to go away. Now, the larger, maybe we'll get into this, the larger, it's like, she's doing, in every competitive state, she's doing a little bit worse than the Senate candidate, right? Or the candidate for governor. She's doing a little bit worse in Nevada. She's doing a little bit worse in Arizona, a lot worse in Arizona. Doing worse in Ohio, Michigan. So, like,
to be fair, there's a reason. I think that, like, the Republican Party, for some indecipherable reason, has decided to run like objectively bad green candidates in a lot of these races that just, I don't know what else to say, because like no one wants the troop guy that has already had like 2 failed like state senatorial runs or whatever, like in Nevada, who is like a Trumpian weirdo on top of everything else. Like I think that like it's the Kerry Lake strategy that they just keep bouldering over and over again for some weird, indecipherable purpose. And I think that is part of the reason. And I do suspect, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I'm asking you, I suspect that a different reason, a different part of the reason is because senatorial runs, I think, have more policy by design. It's rarely ever just like vibes based in the way that like a general election and presidential campaigns can be run on vibes a little bit to a certain degree, like whereas like a Senate seat is maybe not as like close and personal as like a governor is, because like that's the reason why you see differences on the ballot splits on like gubernatorial races, even if it's packaged in the general election. Like you will have red governors in blue states, blue governors in red states that are profoundly popular, because people associate that not with the party, but with like, what can this guy do for me and what kind of immediate impact he might have in my life. And I feel like the Senate race is a little bit closer to that idea than the presidential race. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, that's definitely happening. They're all. I can't think of a state where the Republicans have a better Senate candidate than Trump for the purpose of what we're talking about. Because none of them could. Again, what is so attractive about him to people who didn't vote for him before is he used to be president and things were cheaper when he was president and there was no war in Gaza. And you can't, if you're just a Republican Senate candidate, you can't say that. You were not. You can't prove this. You're just running on the Trump agenda, which, taken away from his record, is not that popular. I mean, he's still not that popular when the best numbers of his political career are coming out right now, and he'll sometimes hit 48% of people who say he did a good job as president. Like, that's not great, but it used to be 40%. Whereas if you're Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, you're just a guy who worked for the Bush administration. Everyone misses that. And you made a lot of money in Connecticut, a hedge fund, and now you're running. And he's got a good bio in some ways, but he can't. He's just running on the Trump message and saying, "I'm going to reverse the inflation. I'm going to fix all this stuff." You are seeing Republicans echo a lot of his messaging around the country. I wrote about this last week, how the Trump campaign has been running a lot of ads about trans issues, and the Senate Republicans have started running those ads. But they're following Trump because none of their candidates have that same appeal. They're just, I'm also a Republican. I want to help Trump deliver on this stuff. It's still unclear to me if the country wants a Republican trifecta to help Trump out, or if it would prefer kind of like when people thought Hillary would win, there was a lot of ballot splitting of people who voted Republican because they assumed she'd win. They wanted a check. I wonder. I've thought that's part of it too, although I haven't met a lot of voters who think that.
David, on the topic of polling, in this particular cycle, am I crazy, or has polling just been all over the place? Like, one day you'll get a Harris +5 in a national poll, and then the next day you'll get a Trump +2. And I saw a Fox News poll, which is I understand is a reputable pollster. Showing Trump +2 in the national, but then the crosstabs show, which is I understand that the crosstabs aren't exactly, the margin of error is larger, but showing Harris up on this in the swing states, basically implying that she could lose the popular vote and then win in the swing states. My question: in any other cycle, have we seen polls be this erratic and all over the place, or is this unique to this particular cycle?
A little, yeah. We've seen some wacky polls in the past. I was at the Post when we put out this, the polling units, not the reporters, not the same people, we put up this poll that said Biden up in 17 in Wisconsin. And I remember Democrats had to push back and say, that's not true. We're trying to win Wisconsin. By no means that 17-point poll lead. So I've seen less huge diversions. The divergence has been really like 4 points. And because it's close, polls that come out where there is a shift of 3 points from the last one, but that means Michigan went from Kamala 50 to Kamala 48, Trump 50. And that causes a panic. The polls there are fewer than there used to be. There's also a lot of, and this is the good lib thing to get annoyed with, there are a lot of weird firms that just come out of woodwork every couple of years now and put some polls out and created a storyline that happened in 2022. I do think a lot of Democrats, it's not that annoying, are correct that all of a sudden Trafalgar was like, guess what? Vermont governor or Vermont Senate's like within 3 points, and didn't publish all their methodology, etc. Some of that's happening, but it's really the variance is pretty small. It's just that when Kamala was doing her best, she was up by 3 or 4 points. I think her biggest national lead was not even 4 points, and now it's 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm
just going off like 538 average.
Yeah. I do think it's the unthinkable might happen where Kamala Harris ends up winning the Electoral College but losing the general. I mean,
that would be the funniest way for her to win.
Not losing the general, sorry, losing the popular vote.
That would be the funniest way for her to win.
Like, I mean, it's unlikely, but I am of this mindset that the craziest thing that you expect will most likely happen at this point.
So, David, have you taken any look to, and I'm sure it's a fool's game at this stage, but the early voting statistics of any of the swing states, and have you been able to extrapolate anything from that data? I know this is kind of a dangerous game to play, but I'm just curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, that stuff is voodoo. It's tricky because, for example, Georgia had the biggest single day early vote ever. And that's how it got reported. And I saw some the cycle I saw, and I'm describing tweets, which is always exciting, but it was, well, look at this huge turnout. Oh no, the turnout is much less African American than it was 2 years ago. Oh, third thing we noticed 2 years ago, Atlanta voted before anyone else, like a day before, and that's why it's worse. So that's a good example of how tough it is. So I've talked to Democratic, Republican campaigns that are doing the ballot chase, which is somebody gets and I have one of these mail ballots in D.C. You get a mail ballot home, and do you remember to turn it or not? The one job in the campaigns is going to people's houses and saying, "Hey, buddy, have you turned this ballot in? If you haven't, I want you to turn it in. I'll help you fill it out." And those have been pretty good for Democrats in Pennsylvania. They've been less good for Democrats in Arizona. I was just with Turning Point Action, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, et cetera, those guys, the political group. I was with them in Arizona last week, and that's their whole thing, is spending years of getting people who will go and find those voters and say, please don't screw this up like 2022 show. And that's been pretty good for them. So just a little bit. But in 2016 and 20, if you looked at the early voting, you would assume Democrats are going to crush. And they lost one, and one they did worse than they expected. Because everyone now knows this X factor is all these Republicans who don't trust anything but voting in person. Like Twitch streaming it live and like sending it to Mike Lindell to make sure everybody knows what's going on. Like, they will vote, they will turn it out. So the whole election is, what can we get in the bank before the MAGA vote comes out? Maybe this time there's less of it. What if there's a lot of it? If we're only up by 600,000 mail ballots, that might not be enough. That is a big thing happening with Democrats.
I've seen Republicans. It's all over the place, and I know. I asked that question knowing that it's a fool's game to try to even figure out what's going on, because you see Republicans claiming that, the early vote is a good sign for Republicans because the GOP has been pushing. Contradicting their own message to try to get their voters out early. And then, they're also operating under the assumption that a bunch of Republicans are going to show up on election day. So it is just all over the place. But I mean, I'm anxious about it. So I'm desperately digging in as deep as I can into every number to try to figure out some sort of cope, to get me through, the next couple weeks.
Oh, no, that's real tough. I mean, it's just, nobody knows how many MAGA voters are going to show up on election day. So it's, if the turnout was really bad and Democrats started to panic, we're not getting our people out, that'd be one thing. But they've got they're feeling like they're doing what they built the campaign to do with the early vote. They don't feel bad about it. Arizona's is the one where Republicans are doing a little bit better but remember, this is 2 years of Republicans in Arizona telling themselves, we could have won the election for Kari Lake, but we all showed up on election day and the machines are broken. Yeah. So they've been inculcated, and please vote before it's the last day.
Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen? I've got theories. You never know. I mean, I've got theories that I hope come true. Like, I hope that these low propensity voters for Trump, you see a lot of it's just a bunch of noise, but it's just really a bunch of the night before election day and can't show up to vote. That's my hope, is what actually happens. But God knows, it's really, I've learned since the last election, a lot of it's just turnout. You got to turn out your base, and if they show up, then you'll win. And if they don't, they won't.
Okay, so one thing I want to talk about here is the way that Kamala Harris is perceived. I'm going back to the same thing that I was talking about earlier. The differences between like an 08 style hope and change, like overtly progressive campaign message that activates like a younger base of support, and versus the Hillary Clinton, post-Hillary Clinton, like we're going to activate the suburbs method that Kamala Harris is utilizing. One thing that I've always found to be tricky with that, with respect to Kamala Harris, is the reality that 46% of Americans find her to be too liberal. Now, I think I'm no big city lawyer, but I've been around the block at least a decade now, covered a couple of these campaigns. I think that just means she's black. She's a black woman. And I think that a lot of voters perceive her as that, regardless of what she says and regardless of what she communicates, right? Because she has not communicated a radical message at all. If anything, I consider her message to be far too radical in the right-wing direction. And I fear that I don't want Donald Trump to win. But I feel as though trying to get the college suburban, college educated suburban white voters to overcome certain aspects of maybe like underlying white supremacist resentment is a tricky bargain for someone with the optics of Kamala Harris being a black woman. That's why I think it's a bit of a gamble.
The Kamala story has done these twists and turns, because if you could teleport and bring in the 2012 Kamala Harris, this was the one who was famous for being the DA, the San Francisco DA who was less liberal than the predecessor and was going after truants. I saw this after the Fox News interview. The Republican GOP, it was the RNC account that did this. She said to Bret Baier, "Oh, I would never call Americans stupid," and they said, "Aha, what about this?" And it was a clip of her telling an audience about how to go after like truants and saying, "What else do we know about these people? They are stupid." And that was the kind of Kamala that people did not see as super far left. So then she runs for president. I'd say she gets to Washington and she's part of the Trump resistance. She's signing on to Medicare for all. She is doing more liberal things, progressive things, at least saying them in public, than she did in California. And then she's vice president. They don't do all that stuff. Now, it's not just, oh, she's a black woman from California, I assume she's more liberal. I think part of that is there because San Francisco is still sort of a stand-in for a lot of people for liberal, or or gay is their one. But I mean, you say San Francisco now to a conservative, and it's the city of where everyone's homeless and there's everywhere. That's probably her fault. So she's tried over the career and a little bit of the software from before she became a senator of, no, I was a prosecutor and I was a tough prosecutor. I carry a Glock. That stuff has done a little bit of good for her. She definitely is seen as less liberal than she was 3 months ago. Because the old story was,
can I show
Biden
you
picked
something?
this
I'm going to share my
candidate.
screen.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm talking about
because I want to. No, not at all. I want you to look at this as well, because this is from Blueprint, the newest polling on what kind of messaging and what kind of preference effect it has overall, and preference effect on independents. And I feel like a lot of the things that she has said that are, if you look at it, it's like literally the most progressive things that she says, regardless of her background, poll spectacularly. Regardless of her background, regardless of like what people say against it, like counter messaging. I use price gouging regularly. I think they like accidentally landed on a brilliant way to message something with that one. It's like unique, I think. And then they, of course, predictably dropped it kind of and stopped talking about it because they got scared of like the counter messaging against it. And then everything that goes down to like, neoliberalism versus like, actual right-wing sentiment. You asked me what the difference is between Joe Biden and me. That will be one of the differences. I'm going to have a Republican my candidate. Preference effect overall +10, -10 for Harris. For independents, -12 Harris. What, if anything, would you have done differently than President Biden during the past 4 years? Asked one host. Harris responded, "There's not a thing that comes to mind." -21 Harris, -26 Harris.
Yeah, I sort of was a holdout on that because in my mind I thought, well, she's his vice president. That's a great trick question to ask, because the follow up is always, well, why didn't you do it? If Biden wanted to do this differently, why didn't you go there and do it? Biden ran for president, and he'd been Obama's VP, and this was a question he got sometimes. So, okay, you were telling him that he was handling Afghanistan wrong. Why didn't you do something? But just the way she put it, because every question you could answer in a better way. What if they could run that again, and she said something like, "Well, I'm a different person," and kind of like she told Fox, that they wouldn't have had that clip. Yeah, I believe that the progressive stuff that you highlight, the Blueprint put in there, and I thought the Blueprint too. It is the economic populist stuff, right? It is, and that's the thing. They don't think they lose any of these Republican voters by saying we're going to expand Medicare to cover home care. They would if they said, and we're going to replace everybody's health care with Medicare which would be a stupid thing to say because that's not how you're supposed to sell Medicare for all. But
Yeah,
the progressive stuff they are running on, they're pretty confident that stuff plays. It's tough for them. I'm not trying to say, poor campaign, but this happens with every campaign. Is the message of the day is, hey, everybody, we're rolling out this new popular healthcare plan. You're going to love it. That can get overwhelmed by other stuff. Or, hey, this happened a couple days ago. Hey, we've got a plan for Black America. Here are the specific things that are going to benefit Black men. And one of them is protections for crypto. And the story is, why is she so obsessed with crypto? Like, it's really getting that message out is tough, but that's their job. So she's definitely
I need to pause there for a second.
Hit some like foul balls when she's tried to say, here's my popular idea.
I need to cut in there though. The percentage of the percentage of Black men that own crypto is 20%, and I'm almost certain, like, at least this is anecdotal from my friends, but it is a 1-to-1 of the percentage of, I think, Black voters that will vote for Donald Trump. I think that's one of the that might be one of the only that's one of the only niche micro-targeted campaign messages that like directly impacts the targeted audience. The percentage of Black people that own crypto is 20%. It's not absolutely false. That's what the numbers are. It's not Black men. It's just 20% of Black people.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
No. That I've seen other Democrats do this before the FTX thing in 2022. I wrote about some Democrats, and they were campaigning with Black entrepreneurs who had some crypto investments. If you ever seen Spike Lee's ad, which I think he's deleted for crypto, it's all about how new money can